When Andrew Neil calls you cack-handed at politics, you know you've properly messed up. And when one of the most respected political commentators in Britain says you won't make it through the summer, you're not just in trouble, you're in the kind of trouble that ends careers. Andrew Neil just went on Times Radio and absolutely eviscerated Keir Starmer. Not with subtle criticism, not with gentle concern, but with full-blown eruption. He said Starmer is so incompetent at politics that he'll be gone before the end of the year, maybe even before summer. That's not speculation. That's a prediction from someone who's watched British politics for decades and can smell political death from a mile away. And if that wasn't brutal enough, Neil pointed out that Starmer's popularity ratings are lower than Nicolas Maduro's were in Venezuela. You know, the authoritarian dictator who just got kidnapped by US forces. Yeah, Starmer is less popular than that guy. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where we document the slow-motion car crash that is the Starmer premiership. Let's break down why Andrew Neil thinks Starmer is finished and why he's probably right. So, who is Andrew Neil and why does his opinion matter? For those who might not know, Neil is a broadcasting legend. He's interviewed every major British politician for decades. He's hosted shows on the BBC, he founded GB News. He's a journalist who commands respect across the political spectrum, even from people who disagree with him. When Andrew Neil makes a prediction about British politics, you listen, because he's seen governments rise and fall. He's watched prime ministers at their peak and at their nadir. He knows what political death looks like, and according to him, Starmer has it. Terminal. Incurable, fatal. Neil was speaking on Times Radio when he dropped this absolute bombshell. He said, "I doubt Mr. Starmer will be with us by the end of next year. I'm not sure he'll even make it through the summer." By the end of next year? That's bold enough. We're talking about a prime minister with a massive parliamentary majority potentially being forced out within 12 months. That would be extraordinary. But then Neil goes further. He says Starmer might not even make it through the summer. That's 6 months away. 6 months. If Neil is right, and he has a pretty good track record, we could have a new prime minister by July. Let that sink in. Labour won a landslide election less than a year ago, and they might be on their third leader before the next election. It would be chaos. It would be unprecedented. And based on everything we're seeing, it's entirely plausible. The context for Neil's prediction is important. Starmer's government has been lurching from crisis to crisis. They've performed what Neil describes as a series of humiliating U-turns. The latest was on inheritance tax changes for farmers. Labour introduced a policy that would have hit farmers with significant tax bills when inheriting family farms. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Farmers protested, rural communities revolted, and even Labour MPs started getting nervous. So the government backtracked. Again, this is becoming a pattern. Announce a policy, face backlash, reverse course. It makes the government look weak and directionless. And voters notice. They see a prime minister who doesn't know what he's doing and can't stick to his guns. The speculation about Starmer being forced out isn't just media gossip. It's real. Labour MPs are jittery. They're looking at the polls, they're looking at the upcoming local elections in May, and they're panicking. Bookmakers have already shortened their odds on Starmer leaving Downing Street. William Hill is offering odds of 8-13, which translates to a 62% chance that he'll quit in 2026. 62%. That's not a long shot. That's the favorite outcome. When bookmakers think something is more likely to happen than not happen, you should pay attention. Because bookmakers don't deal in wishful thinking. They deal in probabilities. And right now, the probability is that Starmer won't see 2027 as prime minister. The rumored replacements are fascinating. Health Secretary Wes Streeting and former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner are both being mentioned. Streeting has been positioning himself as a more competent, more media-savvy alternative. He's been doing the morning shows, he's been defending government policy, he's been raising his profile. Whether he's deliberately angling for the top job or just doing his job well is debatable, but people are noticing him. Rayner, on the other hand, represents the left wing of the party. She's got working-class credentials that Starmer lacks. She connects with voters in a way Starmer doesn't. Either of them would represent a significant shift from Starmer's leadership. And the fact that names are already being floated tells you that the conversation is happening behind closed doors in Westminster. But here's where Andrew Neil's analysis gets really interesting. He addresses the argument that getting rid of Starmer would help Nigel Farage. This argument has been making the rounds. The idea is that if Labour changes leader again, it will look chaotic and unprofessional, and that chaos will benefit Reform UK. Therefore, Labour should stick with Starmer even though he's failing because the alternative is worse. And apparently, Starmer himself has been pushing this line. He's been saying that getting rid of him would be good news for Nigel Farage, and Neil absolutely tears this argument apart. Neil says he's so cack-handed at politics. For him to even entertain, oh, if you get rid of me, it'll be good news for Nigel Farage, you never say that. If you're a leader, you say there's no possibility of anybody getting rid of me. I'm here to stay. This is absolutely spot on. When a leader starts publicly acknowledging that people might get rid of them, it's over. You've lost because you're showing weakness. You're showing that you're worried. Leaders don't say, maybe they'll replace me. Leaders say, I'm not going anywhere. The fact that Starmer is even entertaining the idea that he might be replaced tells you he knows he's in trouble. And by saying it out loud, he's making it more likely to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more he talks about being replaced, the more people think about replacing him. But Neil doesn't stop there. He goes on to demolish the logic of the argument itself. And by the way, why would it be any better for Nigel Farage? Keir Starmer is the most unpopular leader, one of the most in the world. His popularity ratings are even lower than Maduro's were in Venezuela. So Farage is on top of the world with Starmer, and why would he want it to change? This is devastating. Neil is pointing out that Farage is surging in the polls precisely because Starmer is so incompetent. Reform UK is benefiting enormously from having Starmer as an opponent. He's the perfect foil. Every time he messes up, every time he U-turns, every time he stammers through an interview, Farage gains supporters. So the idea that replacing Starmer would help Farage is backwards. Keeping Starmer is what's helping Farage. Replacing him with someone competent might actually hurt Reform's chances. Neil continues, Starmer is doing his best to get Reform in without Labour changing the leadership. I thought it was an insane point to make when you're that unpopular. Insane. That's the word Neil uses. Insane. He's saying that for Starmer to even entertain, oh, if you get rid of me, it'll be good news for Nigel Farage, when Starmer's own incompetence is currently helping Farage more than anything else could, is genuinely crazy. It's a nonsensical argument that doesn't stand up to even basic scrutiny. And yet he's making it, which tells you how desperate he is. The comparison to Maduro is absolutely brutal. Nicolas Maduro was one of the most hated leaders in the world. His authoritarian regime drove Venezuela into economic collapse. Millions fled the country. He rigged elections, he suppressed dissent, he was universally reviled. And according to Andrew Neil, Starmer's popularity ratings are even lower than Maduro's were in Venezuela. Let that sink in. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, leading a democratic government in a stable, wealthy nation, is less popular than an authoritarian dictator presiding over a failed state. That's not just bad, that's catastrophically bad. It's the kind of unpopularity that ends political careers. The actual numbers back this up. A YouGov poll in December gave Starmer a net favorability rating of -54. -54. Just 18% of Britons have a positive view of him. 18%. That means more than 4 out of 5 people don't like him. 72% see him negatively. Those are historically terrible numbers. They're worse than any prime minister in recent memory at this stage of their tenure. Even Gordon Brown, who was deeply unpopular and lost badly in 2010, didn't have ratings this abysmal this quickly. Starmer has managed to become one of the most hated prime ministers ever in less than a year. That takes a special kind of incompetence. So why is he so unpopular? Well, there are several reasons. First, the policies haven't worked. The economy isn't growing, the cost of living continues, immigration is still high despite promises to bring it down, public services are still struggling. Nothing has improved under Labour.
People gave them a chance and they've been disappointed. Second, the constant U-turns make the government look weak and incompetent. You can't respect a leader who keeps changing their mind every time there's pushback. Third, Starmer himself is a terrible communicator. He's wooden, he stammers, he gives non-answers to direct questions. He doesn't connect with people. He doesn't inspire confidence. And in politics, perception is everything. People perceive him as weak and out of his depth, and they're right. The cack-handed comment from Andrew Neil is particularly cutting because it's so accurate. Cack-handed means clumsy, inept, incompetent, and that describes Starmer's approach to politics perfectly. He makes unforced errors constantly. He announces policies without thinking through the consequences. He picks fights he can't win. He makes promises he can't keep. He says things that undermine his own position. It's like watching someone who's never played chess try to compete in a tournament. They might know the basic rules, but they have no strategy, no foresight, no skill. Every move makes their position worse. The timeline Neil suggests is also significant. He says Starmer might not make it through the summer. Summer is when the local election results from May will be fully digested. If Labour gets hammered in those elections, which seems likely, the pressure on Starmer will become unbearable. MPs who are already nervous will panic. They'll be looking